Oh,
All right, we are recording. Miss Lisa Lockhart, how are you doing?
well, I'm just fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you for putting up with my lack of technology knowledge here. I'm a little bit late here on my behalf, but thank you for joining me.
Well, you are very welcome and glad to help. So, yeah, this will be fun.
Well, awesome, awesome. Well, we'll dive right on into it, y'all. This is the second athlete featured in the actual music video for Keep Up With A Cowgirl that we've been able to interview. So first off, thank you so much for being a part of that, man. That video came out so awesome, and you guys looked amazing in it.
Oh, well, thank you. So, yeah, it's amazing what technology can do. So, yeah, we all look good.
I heard that. Well, we'll dive into the video stuff later. I want to start off. So I guess let me kind of give you the idea here. With my fans and my side of the world, it's going to be music related. And a lot of them may know about rodeo, but they don't really understand what it takes to do what you guys do and the behind the scenes part. And so I'm wanting to dive in and really give them an idea of what it's like. For instance, for me, a lot of people think you just show up, step on a stage, and ta-da, that's all it took. And there was many, many, many years and days of steps to get to that point. And so I'm going to start from the very, very beginning. Where did you grow up? How'd you get started? And just take us through the top.
Sure. I can't agree with you more that people think we just step into this and our lifestyle looks very glamorous as it is. But, I was born in Montana, Wolf Point, Montana, and very eastern Montana for which we were, farmers and ranchers and had the access to horses. And so at a very early age, I was a horse crazy little girl. And a long time ago there was not a lot of events offered, and so with that, I got to go to some local play days and things like that as a young girl, and I had some sisters before me that dabbled in it a little bit, so hence began my rodeo career, which is nothing like what any kind of rodeo careers or opportunities are at this day and age. But with that being said, I'm a very competitive person by nature. Loved high school sports and things like that, so very competitive. And the fact that my love and passion and desire to work with horses has been with me since I was such a small girl. To the two can just complement each other by being able to rodeo, or my passion for competing and my passion for horses. So it's just it's just doubly great for me, and I cannot imagine doing it any other way. So with that, I obviously came up through the ranks of play days and high school rodeo and college rodeo, and to an amateur level, and then to a professional level, which has been the career has been a long and wonderful journey without a doubt. But like I said, our lifestyle looks very glamorous as it is, but there's 25 years that have been put into this to get me where I am now. And just at a whether it be high school and college level, working at it. But it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of work, and the behind the scenes action of what we do. I don't think a lot of people would even understand where we come from and what we do to get to these rodeos, to make it to the national finals rodeo and things like that. So it's a long journey, and it's 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It seems like we're either working towards our goal, thinking about our goal, trying to figure out how we can get better. So it's not just a matter of competing in the arena for a short amount of time. It's everything that goes into it, day in, day out, all year long, that gets us to where we are now.
I love it. Well, ironically, you literally tiptoed every single question that I ask on this thing. So I'm going to dive in a little more depth. Okay. You grew up in Montana and you obviously grew up ranching. So let's go a little deeper into that. First off, do you still live in Montana? Where do you live at now?
I do not. My husband and I have been married, gosh, don't get me in trouble now, but it's been probably almost 28 years, I guess. So we met at a rodeo in Canada, of all things. He is originally from South Dakota, but yet grew up in Arizona. But anyway, we met at a rodeo in Canada. I'm from Eastern Montana. Hence now we are in a small town called Ulrich, South Dakota, which is very near to the Black Hills, around the Rapid City area.
I got it. I got it. Well, I want to dive in a little bit more about the growing up because, some people we've talked to, it was strictly just a horse thing, or they jumped in and that was where their start was. And then there's ones like you that truly did ranch. And, going to as a kid, like what y'all did, I mean, when did it go from, it's obviously still work. I want to make sure I word
Right.
this correctly, but when did it go from, a ranching work to actually to barrel racing competing? I mean, where did that transition happen? How did you get there? Go through a day in your childhood.
Definitely on the ranch, we were farmers and ranchers. So, which would be a lot different than being a full scale rancher, of course. And so therefore, my dad was probably more of a farmer per se than a rancher,
Mhm.
or that notion. So anyway, didn't know a lot about horses. My parents didn't know a lot about horses, so I didn't have a lot of help. People always ask me, who was your mentor as a kid or things like that. Basically we just kind of threw ourselves into it, and especially like I said, my sisters before me. So with just the regular ranch work and the farming and things like that, learning to do what we did to be able to go to these local play days. I laugh about it now because as a matter of fact, just yesterday I had to send a picture to somebody for some story that they're doing for the NFR, and a picture of me on a horse as a very young girl. And the event was pole bending, which obviously, to explain it just a little bit, these poles have a plastic base, and they're made out of like PVC pipe or whatever. Well, in this picture, it is a large truck tire with a steel pipe coming out of it. So these are just examples of, local things that I went to, how, what do I want to say, backwoodsy it was, and what little bit we really knew. And so I think about what I did as a child, and how we practiced, or how I even learned to participate in these rodeo events. We had, a lot of trees, and we would barrel race around the trees and things like that. So it's just kind of crazy thinking back on like, how did I ever get to this point, starting out how I started, because it was not an ideal beginning whatsoever. But I would say probably more as I got into high school, and just, the whole realm of rodeo, and uh how much more popular it was, and everything becoming more professional. So it was probably, high school, and actually in college, when it was actually a turning point for me. Training more horses, and just, really being very serious about what I was doing, and really diving in. And it was so much more meaningful at that point, that it wasn't something I was just doing for fun, that I really wanted to be competitive and continue to grow in the sport. So I think college was probably really my turning point.
That's awesome. So you're kind of answering that, but I want to go a little deeper too. For instance, with me, everybody can move to Nashville, but at some point, there's some moment you realize that I've actually got a chance of doing this, and you say, I'm going to go all out. What was that defining moment for you?
Well, I did rodeo professionally, after college, at an amateur level, and, dabbled a little bit in the professional level. But my husband, newlyweds at the time, and he was definitely going more at a professional level, and came very close himself to making it to the NFR. So, at that time in my life, it was more thinking about supporting him, going where I could go, when I could go, things like that. But it was more about his career at the time. And I'm trying to think probably what year it was, probably around 2006, that I did have a horse that was actually, I had two nice horses. And my husband really encouraged me. He was like, you need to go a little bit more. You need to try this on a little bit. So with that being said, we did, and we actually went to Canada a lot that summer, and that was the first year that they allowed Canadians to go to the Canadian National Finals Rodeo, or excuse me, Americans to go to the Canadian National Finals Rodeo. So fast forward 2006 to I was a Canadian champion, and 2007 my husband's like, you're gonna go, try it a little bit more, and try to make the NFR. I'm like, you are crazy. He's like, no, he said, you've got the horsepower. You need to try this. So without his encouragement, that's probably the big shove. And lo and behold, I hate to admit it, but he was right, because he usually is. And so
Hey, us
2007.
guys, every dog has his day. I tell my fiance all the time, I'm like, one of these days you realize I'm actually right now and then.
Oh gosh, we joke about it all the time, but no, he was right. And it was because of his encouragement and pushing me, like, just go for it and go after it. So 2007 was our first national finals qualification. And, we've not really looked back since. And even to this day, for example, this year, which thankfully, we're very grateful for my 16th consecutive national finals qualification.
That's amazing.
But it was a very difficult road last year and this year. And I worked harder at it this year than I've ever worked at it. And once again, if it wasn't for his encouragement and telling me it's mathematically possible, because with 1 month left to go in the season, I mean, I don't even think I was a thought that anybody would, see me coming and actually accomplish what I felt like I accomplished. Because yes, was it mathematically possible? But was it likely? Absolutely not. And in my favor, absolutely not. So yeah, it came down to the last weekend of the season, but we got it done.
Hey, that's all that matters. Man, there's so many things I want to ask you, and I got ADD, so I got to remember all this in my brain. But I want to dive a little more because, I've talked to several that have actually made it as far as the NFR, but I've never really asked this question. But that very first time that you actually qualify and you're getting to go to that and you're getting to be really in the biggest part of rodeo, I mean, what's going through your brain? I mean, what was your mental state? What were you thinking at that time? I mean, what's it like to finally know you're one of the best and you're getting to go compete against the best?
Well, actually it was um I don't even know how to explain it, because I was still almost in disbelief, like, I can't believe I'm here. It was one
Yeah.
of those things where, like, this wasn't what, I'd always planned, or, same thing with my husband. It was kind of like, it was always more about his career. And then when it finally happened to me, I'm like, whoa, what just happened? And so, I think that was probably more the shock and awe, and actually being there. And I think it was the morning of our first barrel racing practice that I was sitting in line of the alley waiting to, for my turn for this, practice session. And I just, kind of looked around. I'm like, and I looked at a friend of mine, same thing. She had a husband it was kind of about his career, and then she actually made it that year. And I'm like, do you believe we're actually here? And so I think that was kind of my defining moment, sitting there that morning before it all, 2 days before it all started in our practice session, like, whoa, I'm here. And so yeah, that was kind of the aha moment for me.
I love it. I love it. Well, you've got a little bit more of a unique situation with you and your husband. I've talked to several of the female athletes, and there's guys that may have rodeoed a little bit but never took it far. Or the guys are strictly ranchers and just support. But I mean, you both competed. So how does that work? I mean, does he still compete, or is it strictly you now? Or, how do y'all support each other and make this work?
He competed until, oh gosh, till the kids. We have 3 children, and so when our kids were actually in school, middle school, then it got very hard for us to pull them out of school and things like that. So that's when he took a step back and he said, "All right, I'm going to stay home with the oldest 2. You got to keep the young one," because he wasn't in school yet, and we're ranchers ourselves here. So that was kind of part of the deal. That he's like, and by then he was starting to slow down a little bit. He's a calf roper, and so father time does kind of, take a step in when as being a calf roper and things like that. So he did slow down a lot. And roles kind of changed a little bit, and I continued to keep going. In the winter is more, the hard part, or trying to pull kids out of school, or in the summer, with our kids being older, they had their own endeavors that they wanted to attain. So that's when he kind of like, all right, I'm going to do this, we made it work. I did a lot of extra driving. I would come home for basketball games, or I might make a trip home from Houston, Texas to Ulrich, South Dakota, just so I could be home for 10 days to take part in, some, big games or whatever. So I really tried to schedule my rodeo career around the kids' important events as well. Being there for their high school rodeos and, starting in June and things like that. And so definitely scheduling. Scheduling has been huge for both of us, trying to make it all work, and still make it work for the kids and be able to follow their endeavors, because that's what we enjoy most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dive in a little bit about your horses. So with y'all actually being ranchers, do y'all breed and train, the horses yourselves? Do y'all pick out horses? What's your process?
We do not breed much. Every now and again, we'll dabble in it a little bit, but as far as a breeding operation for the horses, no, we are just a cow calf operation. And so usually we buy some young horses, anywhere from a weanling to 2 or 3 year olds, and just buy a few every year and continue to train. And not only for myself, but obviously we have kids that all three of them participate in rodeo as well. So that's been
I was wondering that. I was
quite.
curious if it went on to the next generation. I figured it did.
Yeah, yeah. So keeping the horse flesh under all of us has been a bit challenging for sure,
Yeah.
especially to the level where I have 3 kids in college now, so they all are competing at a collegiate level as well as an amateur level and a professional level. The oldest two have definitely competed at a professional level too. So keeping the horse flesh going is challenging for sure.
So you don't breed, but do you actually train them yourselves, or do you like to have them train and then you kind of take over from there?
We basically train them ourselves. So every now and again, there might be a situation where, we have bought something, or we bought something maybe started, but, our passion is definitely training them ourselves, buying some young horses and training them ourselves for the most part. Yes.
So you said a key word in there that I was curious about. You said it's a passion. Do you prefer to do that because you love doing it? Or, what's the reason behind you doing the training yourself? Do you feel like you get it done more correctly? Is it just a better bond with the horse? I mean, what's your thought process there?
You said two of the things right there. Number one, the bonding process. I think it's much easier because they're your equine partner and you know them inside and out. Now, whether that's good or bad, what you've trained them to do. Sometimes maybe somebody else could have trained them better, but that bonding process I think is huge, and knowing your equine athlete partner. So I think that is huge. And the other thing is like the self gratification, the process of it for me is just, to know, it's a challenge, and I love challenges, or I wouldn't be this adrenaline junkie that I am. So, I love challenges, and taking them from the start to the finish and coming up with a finished product that's great. There is no more self satisfaction than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So obviously, not every horse you get is going to be exactly what you're looking for. It's kind of like football and stuff like that. You might think you've got the best athlete and it's a bust. What are you looking for when you're going after a horse? And, even when you start training it, what are you looking for to know that, yes, this one can compete at the level you need, or what signs that maybe, well, I don't think we won on this one.
And that's really hard. I would prefer to buy horses, say, at stage 2 or 3, so that have actually been started by a colt starter. So if given that option, I would love to jump on several of them, say this one feels the best. It's more of a feel thing.
Yeah.
And once again, never knowing what the outcome is going to be, because it's a 2 or 3 year process. So ideally, I would like to start out with a horse that's already riding, that somebody's already started. I'm not a colt starter. So we have and will, but I would prefer somebody else to do that. Number one, it's very time consuming. Number two, their knowledge and expertise in that area is much more than mine. I'm a barrel racer. So, let me stick to what I'm better at and let somebody else do what they're better at. So ideally, we like to buy them as already, started under saddle, and then go on with them, because, you just don't know. And those that you think are going to be great sometimes aren't, and vice versa. So I suppose, once you get into the training aspect of it for a certain amount of time, whether it be, 3 months to 6 months, you just kind of know as they're developing, this horse shows a lot of potential. They love their job. They're always, they learn quickly. And then there's those horses that you're on, you're like, okay, we have worked on the same thing, for 3 months or 6 months. And here we are, that is very stagnant, so to me, those types of horses are, probably some of the first that I'd say, what, I'm moving on, because there's horses that, probably are going to be better. And that's not saying those other horses wouldn't make it, but it is very time consuming. So that's really hard. And I'm kind of, I love all of them, of course. So therefore it makes it very hard for me to give up on them. So I don't give up very easily. And I think that's just, my nature in general, that I don't give up. And so sometimes I probably should sooner than later and not spend so much time on a horse.
No quit in you.
Yeah, probably give them more opportunity than some of them deserve. But and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But there's no really defining line, other than their ability to want to learn. And I always say, if they show you a glimpse of brilliance at some point in time, they got to show you something, or you got to feel something like, hey, it's in there. We just haven't tapped into it yet, but it's in there. So it's more of a mindset or a gut feeling a lot of times.
Yeah. Okay, we talked a lot about the horses. Let's talk about you. And a lot of people, I kind of base questions off what I get asked, because I feel like people would wonder the same thing about you guys. Obviously you have training, you have travel days, and you have days just at home and your normal jobs, that kind of stuff. Let's dive in first on the actual career side of it. What's a day of travel like? How much are you gone? What all does it go into, or what all do you have to do to prep before you even leave the house to get out there?
Okay. Well, and that varies greatly. So, in years past, it's more about, if you're trying to go to the national finals, basically you have to be in the top 15 in the world, money won. So whatever it takes to get that money won. In years past, when I, had my great horse named Louis, things were much easier. And I thank the Lord every day, because that was when my kids were little. And so I may have only traveled to, 35 events. I might have competed at 35 rodeos throughout the year. This year I competed at almost 3 times as many, which I've never done in my entire life. But that's what it took. I had my heart set on a goal and I wanted to make it back, and I was going to do whatever it took. And I went to a lot of rodeos this year because of that. So with that being said, there's years when I've been gone 180 days. I mean, because of my travels take me, especially in the winter, it's kind of geographical. In the winter, it's the winter rodeos in Texas. I live in South Dakota. So, basically from the end of January till the end of March, those couple months, I mean, I'm definitely Texas based, whether I come back and forth or whether I stay. Then lots of times I'd come home in the spring, for the end of the calving season, and try to be home, especially if I had a good winter, and I could come home and stay, and then really hit it hard again in the summer. So with that being said, as you geographically go to certain regions, because that's, in the summer, it's a lot more in the Midwest. Very fortunate. I get to kind of stay closer to home to rodeo in the summer. But I mean, on an average, I would go to anywhere from 30 to 65 rodeos a year. This year, I went to 90. Oftentimes it's anywhere 50 or 60,000 miles a year. This year, I know I haven't added it up, but I know I went a lot more miles than, 60,000, because that's kind of been my average over the 15 years. So the 16th year has put a few kinks into the averages. But so with that being said, then you're on the road. I haven't added up my days yet. My accountant's not asking for the days on the road, but I mean, there's got to be, I don't know. I'm just guessing 230 days on the road or something. So home is a very short span. So I didn't even get to come home till basically the 1st of October, and still competing at some things. And so I feel like I've missed my entire fall, all the fall projects that we always have lined up, getting to ride my young horses. So it's been very difficult this year that I feel cheated in my time at home, but it's part of it.
I know that feeling. That's kind of the same thing with us. It's feast or famine. You're touring and busy, and you're happy that you are, but a day off wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yep.
So, I want to ask this because, you've obviously been doing it a little longer. And like, for instance, we had one interview that it was her rookie year, and she's actually the top rookie. And her thought process was, keep me out, keep me in a suitcase. I want to be out every single day. I don't want to be home. For you, obviously, kind of like me, I used to be that way. And now I'm like, oh, let's take some time off and get to the house. When was that shift? And what do you think mentally, or with your body, or just being wise? I mean, what was it click that made you realize, let's be more choosy and only go when we need to go? I mean, what was that process like?
Well, obviously, I started this professional level at a lot later in life than most. So, being married and having 3 kids at the time, I always ask, I'm like, goodness, dear Lord, why'd you bless me with these horses now? And so, why couldn't it have been when I was still single, or, whatever, before kids? And so I think that made it very difficult. So, but it was what it was. And you either chose to utilize those horses, or I needed to sell them. And, they are like my kids as well. So I have a really hard time selling them, but they usually end up, their entire life here at the ranch. And so with that, I think it's just a different mindset of where you're at in your life stages, and, where your priorities are. And like I said, kids, that makes a huge difference with everything. So, we've just made it work. Like I said, scheduling is everything, trying to prioritize, their events, my events, and how can I make it work if possible. But my family's just been the absolute most supportive of it. And they've just always, said, if I have to choose between something, they're like, Mom, just go, just do it. It's okay. They understand. And because they do it themselves, as well, that, it's just different. So it's, and the more, every year there's more events to choose from for everybody, and conflicts. My daughter's trying to schedule a wedding, and, so that it doesn't conflict with my rodeo schedule. I'm like, baby, it's your wedding. Like, I don't care where I'm supposed to be. I'm coming to your wedding, So it's just those kinds of things. There's just, life is all about choices anymore, because there's so many more choices to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the travel and that side of it. Now, you're probably like me, where you go day off, huh? What's that? But when you are home, what's the home life like? Obviously you work and you ranch and you do that kind of stuff. But what do you guys do? What's it? You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, and number one, my priority when I'm home, what little bit it is, the riding of the young horses. So once again, it's fall. Pretty soon our weather's going to get bad, which it already did. We saw, snow yesterday. I'm not a fan of the cold, but here it is. So definitely working with the young horses, that's my priority for sure. Obviously the fall projects, the cattle need to be preconditioned. Here in a couple of weeks, we're going to be, selling calves off the cows. So they'll go to market, bringing the cows back home from summer pasture, so the whole, ranch life of that, which obviously involves getting to ride the young horses for a lot of that. So it all goes hand in hand. But yeah, it's just go like, what heck, when you're home, and the fall projects, we just had to stain a deck that we've been meaning to do for, 10 years, I think, but my husband and I finally got it done. And so just those, kinds of things. But I mean, it's, he's out in the barn doing chores without me right now, because I'm like, well, I have a meeting. So, but anyway, but yeah, it just starts, you head out in the, first thing in the morning, and sometimes you come in for lunch, sometimes you don't. And he always asks me, he says, are you hungry? He said, please don't tell me you forgot about lunch. But, you just go like heck,
Yeah.
because I'm not home very often. So, so that part's really hard. But yeah, it's just mainly just, the everyday normal upkeep with things, trying to progress things. And just the day in and day out. And what can I say, horsing around.
I see what you did there.
Uh-huh.
I want to hear your perspective on this, because, and this isn't a knock on any of the athletes, and not just barrel racing, but the horse world in general. There's people like you that actually grew up ranching and that was a way of life. And there's some people that just grew up with equestrian, they like horses, got into it, and that was their deal. Do you feel like there's a benefit or anything different from someone like you that truly grew up ranching, and the origins of what rodeo came from, compared to just someone who likes horses, jumped into that way and got going?
I always say the school of hard knocks, that I wouldn't trade it for anything. Has it been hard? Absolutely. Whether it be physically, mentally, financially, all of that. Definitely the school of hard knocks. But I feel like it's gotten me where I am today because of it. And I think the longevity of my career has been because of that it's not, like I told you, I've had, this will be the seventh horse that I'm going to ride at the NFR that I've, competed on at the NFR. So it's not just one horse that was in my career, or, one small time frame. People always ask, what's life going to be like without Louis, the horse that, everybody knew more than my name, which is great. I'm so fortunate to have been his jockey. But and it's not been as good, because he was he was a horse of a lifetime. But I've managed to stay alive, and I managed to keep moving forward, and I keep hoping to make another one of those horses of a lifetime. So, I think that that's probably helped the longevity of my career, that I know what it takes. I've been down that road, and I know, I just know what it takes.
Yep. All right, let's dive in now to, you're getting ready, you're about to ride, it's all about to happen. What's your prep like? It's been really interesting to see the different responses here. Some people are very get there early, patience, space it out, routine. Some people are just, I want to get there last second, jump in, jump on, boom. What's your process before you go in the ring?
Once again, that is definitely personal preference for everybody. It goes along with a lot with your personality and what, it's not a cookie cutter thing. So I always tell people when they ask me what's your mental game or whatever, well, that's different. And everybody goes about it differently. But with that being said, a lot of it is, okay, for me personally, mental focus when it's game time. I'm not a chit chatty person. Like, I have a job and I think about my job. The other thing is, it really is relevant to the horse that I'm riding. as to that horse's needs, because I feel like every horse is different as well, and so their needs are different. So trying to accommodate that horse's needs, whether they need a long warm up or a short warm up, or peak them right at the end so they're ready to run, or very nervous horse where you have to warm them up, trying to bring them back to you and have their mental state as prepared as it can be. So to me, the horse and I have to come to a consensus on what that's going to be. And so I think that's part of it there. And then also I have a job, and depending on that horse that I'm riding, what my job is going to be, how am I going to approach that alley, so I'm very methodical and very strategic about my job. And so, once again, how am I going to approach the alley? How am I going to approach my first barrel? What horse am I riding? What are my cues going to be? So to me, it's all about that laser focus of the strategy and the situation. I think that's, huge for, barrel racers and rodeo athletes. We can go from Cheyenne to the small confines of the Thomas and Mack, and they're not the same, and you can't treat them the same. So, because, we're just dealing with animals, and, we have to have a game plan, and I always tell people it's never the same twice. And so you have to be prepared the best you can for what's about to happen, or what you think might happen.
Well, you kind of answered. I want to dive in just a little bit more to that, because you said something different than I haven't really heard from anybody. Everybody's kind of got their process, and that's the way they do it. But it almost sounds to me like you kind of gauge by the horse. Is it a skittish horse? Is it a locked-in horse? You really dial in by what the horse needs, not what you need, and that's pretty interesting. That's the very first time I've heard that answer. So I really love that. Now, okay, here's the one I love asking, and the responses I've gotten. I think I know the answer with you just by the way you talked about your mental process with it. But, I've heard some of them that it's almost a blackout. They don't hear anything. They don't see anything. It's them horse, get in, get out. And then some people love the crowd, hear the crowd. It fuels them. What's it like for you when you're actually out there riding?
I don't hear a lot, because I feel like if I do, I'm distracted, so, I guess I probably talk to myself, in my mind, or whether it be out loud or whatever, like I feel like I try to be so laser focused on my job, and, it's not just, and I think that is response you'll get a lot, or, I help a lot of people with some, barrel racing schools, and they're always like, I don't remember anything. Well, to me, if I'm really focused, I can remember most everything, because, you are thinking inch by inch, step by step, the process of what's happening and how it's happening. And, when you come out and that is just a blur, you're like, what just happened? So I feel like you have a game plan, and you do your best to initiate that plan to the best of your ability. And then, but yeah, so I don't really hear the, what goes on. I really don't. And I'm not saying you might not hear glimpses of something, but, I guess I'm just so focused on my job that, I guess that's what works for me.
Yeah. Well, it's, and everybody may think the same way, and they haven't related in the interviews, but it's, obviously I don't rodeo. I love singing about the stuff and being a country singer, but y'all played football, and that's kind of what I relate to when it comes to athletics. And, you're the first one I've heard really almost talk about kind of like a Bill Belichick in the NFL, where it's, everything's strategic. It's all schemed out. Every step you're wanting to do. Obviously things are going to happen. There might be, circumstances that change, but I've never looked at it that way. And you're the first one that's brought it up. So that's a really, really interesting approach. And that's cool to hear.
Well, I mean, I think whether you're on the free throw line, shooting a free throw and the crowd's going crazy. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you've practiced that throw 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times or whatever. Yeah. So, laser focus, whatever is going on around you, the point is you're still going to, put that ball through the hoop.
I love it. I love it. All right, well, let's dive into our common whatever I'm trying to say here. Our common denominator is Durango boots. Obviously, I'm sponsored with them. How long have you been working with Durango as well? And how did y'all start your sponsorship together?
It's been a few years. Gosh, I'd have to think. It's probably been 3 years, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm terrible with numbers. And anybody that you can ask me, I can remember my 16th NFR qualification. I got asked yesterday my age. I could not tell them that. I'm like, 56, 57. I don't, anyway, so numbers. I'm really poor with numbers, but I know it's been at least 3 years. But point being, regardless of the time frame, they approached me, and obviously Durango's been around a long time. And so I'm like, I've not tried your boots, any time in the, recent years. I said, so I would have to, if you don't mind, I said, can I try your product or whatever? So they were absolutely gracious about sending me product, and giving me that opportunity to, try it and make sure that I'm like, okay, absolutely. And so, because like I said, I wasn't currently wearing them at the time. So I had to be sure, because I feel like, if I'm going to endorse something, I want to stand behind it and I want to be sure about that. So with that being said, and more than anything, just developing the relationship with Durango, and having that relationship, and how far it has actually gone, as far as, they want my feedback. They wanted the feedback, they wanted, my thoughts. And, there's a lot of companies where you feel like, ooh, this is their product, you don't want to say anything. And, that is not what I feel like Durango has been in my relationship.
100%.
And same way, with some of the other rodeo athletes, like they have been just absolutely open to, wanting to promote the best product that they can as well, and getting, that information from their athletes. So I commend them greatly for that they, if you ask for something, they listen. So they have been superb in that manner. And, cannot I'm so proud of their product. And I always say that my husband's just as great of an advocate as me. And so, when I say that the durability or whatever of the boot is there, I mean the durability of the boot is there. I mean, that was one of the things, like I always told, them, like, certain things on soles and other boots fall off or blah, 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 that is not the case here. And so anyway, and just having that relationship of what they want to do and how they always want to keep growing, I just absolutely love working with Durango.
Awesome. I couldn't say it any better than you did. I would add, but I'm pretty sure I would just repeat what you already said. Let's talk about the music video a little bit. Did they give you a heads up? I know the last one I talked about, she's like, yeah, didn't know anything about it. Saw the video and was like, whoa. So what was your first time you saw it? And did you have a heads up on it, or were you surprised as well?
Did not have a heads up and was surprised as well. I'm like, whoa. So anyway, I thought it was cool. Of course, then I was just kind of like starstruck by it all. And I just thought, it was really, really fantastic. And so anyway, yeah, like I said, technology and what they can do with technology is really, really cool. So, I mean, looking back now, it's like, well, it's obvious that, that we all get to be together. And so we thank you for allowing us to be a part of your video, because, it was your video, not our video. So we're just glad to be a part of it. And,
Don't be all humble. I'm the lucky one. Y'all made me look really good. So
it's just nice to have that connection with, whether it be Durango. I mean, that was just
yeah.
awesome to have that connection. I'm like, this worked out really, really well.
Man, it
Yeah.
really did. I had an idea of what I wanted to do with the video, which, I envisioned the old, the Garth Brooks, The Dance, which is kind of weird because that's kind of a depressing song the way it was. But I had that vision to just let me sing the song, but let's get Cowgirls in there and they'll show who they are and what they do. And man, Durango jumped up, said, we actually have footage for that already, and shot it to us. But did you recognize the shots of yourself in there? Do you remember the rides and when you were riding it to a T of it, or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember where we were at, and it was, I think it was just days after the American maybe. And so, yeah. I remember, going to obviously another, Durango endorsed athlete's place, and, he's a team roper, and I'm like, oh, this isn't really barrel racing ground. So we're not going to go really fast, but we can still get some really cool shots. And, of course I didn't have my competition horse, but it was a young horse. And, since then I've sold the horse. And I mean, this little girl that owns this horse, she thinks that is the greatest thing in the world, that her horse is in this video. I mean, so it's just a gift that keeps on giving. And, but yeah, I remember that. And it was very fun to have that photo shoot and video shoot that day. And, yeah, it was awesome. I think there's 3 of us there one day, and, some others the next. And so, yeah, it was great that, most of our athletes got together and worked on that within just a short time frame. Like I said, I think it was the day after the American, few years ago. Mm-hmm.
But it looked great, and I'm so glad you got to be a part of it. And that ties in a little bit more with the song with Cowgirl. And part of the thing that we had started this podcast and the questions that we wondered, and it's with being a female athlete out there doing that kind of job, that kind of competition. I mean, do you feel like there's any disadvantages or anything that women have to battle that maybe the male rodeo athletes don't deal with, or is there something you want to bring to light that maybe people don't think about?
I don't think so. I think in regards of the male rodeo athletes, they have the utmost respect for us, because most of us, including myself, are out there on the road traveling by themselves. I can change a tire as fast as any pit crew. I can put turbo hoses back on. I mean, change fuel filters, whatever. I mean, like, you feel like I'm not saying everybody can do that, but traveling by myself, or the distances, or over the time frame of my career, that, I've had to learn to do a lot of that stuff. So I really don't feel like that disability. We pack our own hay bales. We do everything we do, like traveling with 3 or 4 horses. So I feel like the respect from the men rodeo athletes is enormous for what we do. So, maybe the rest of the world, maybe they don't really know what we do. I don't have a driver hired, and I don't have somebody hired to, pack the heavy loads of hay, or to change that tire, whatever. I'm just saying. So, I mean, the rest of the world does not know that about us. Like I said, they think that our life is quite glamorous, because when we're in that arena for, at the NFR for 15 seconds or 14 seconds and winning X amount of dollars, they don't know what we just spent getting there. The 230 days on the road, the all night drives, all by yourself, and, 3 horses in the trailer, which I do think, same thing being a timed event contestant as opposed to a rough stock rider, that we always joke about that they have it pretty easy. There's usually 3 or 4 big thrown in their bull ropes, whatever, and here we are toting 3 horses around, because everywhere that a barrel racer goes, even more so than any other timed event, everywhere that a barrel racer goes, they're competing on their own horse. So if I'm going to compete at a rodeo, whether it be Texas or Ellensburg, Washington, like, I'm driving it because my horse is going to be there. Where the other events, may be able to, take an airplane to get there or whatever. So I think it's doubly hard for barrel racers. Even the men's timed events, they do, get mounted a lot, or borrow horses whose horse is there at that rodeo. That is not the case for barrel racers, because ours is more dependent upon the horse. Yeah. So we have to have our horse there. So that's where the difference lies. I think the barrel racers, I'm not trying to ask for any sympathy, but we probably have it the hardest, in all honesty.
Well, I applaud you, because you're the first one that came out and admitted it and actually talked about why. I've asked that question every time, and no, it's the same old thing. I was waiting. I was like, one of you are going to finally step up and tell the truth about it. But well, that's great. That's great. With you being around a little bit longer than some of the people that have only been doing it a few years that we've interviewed, I want to talk about just how you've seen it change over the years. There was one female athlete that's done it for a long time, and something she brought up that I thought was pretty funny was, she said, back in the shoots and all that, you'd see guys back in the day drinking beers, hanging out, and that kind of stuff. Now they're back there doing yoga and making sure they're perfectly fit and that kind of deal. But what have you seen evolve over the years of the sport, and just, taking care of your bodies, and just demeanors backstage, the camaraderie? I mean, what was it like back when you started compared to now?
Oh, huge difference. And you just kind of said that, but I think in any level of professionalism, whatever the sport may be, the level of professionalism is at its, I don't know, how can it, the pinnacle of being so high in every sport, like, how can it get any better, whether it be basketball or football, or, I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, that wow factor has changed a lot, especially in our sport. Once again, same thing, just like you said. And I don't know if it's maybe more because, the prize money is increasing, so the stakes are higher. So, and more people doing it. And once again, it's not a hobby necessarily at this level of professionalism. Not that it was ever a hobby, but what it takes and how competitive it has become. Like, there is no margin for error in any sport, let alone the sport of rodeo as well. So I think taking all that in consideration, like, you have to be at the top of your game at all times. And there's just no margin of error. So, it has changed a lot. Like I said, how we go about it, the opportunities, the amount of opportunities that people have, this day and age, even starting as kids, like, there's so many events for kids, with large, dollar amounts to be won, I mean, so it's become so, but just like everything, everybody starts their kid playing basketball at 6 years old, or, if you're going to start roping a calf or start barrel racing, everything is just happening earlier. Why? Because it has become more perfected and more professionals doing it. And so, if this is what you want to do, you better be in, all in from the very beginning.
So if you had to pick, do you like the more loose older days, or do you like that it's so precise and so thought out now?
Oh goodness. Let me,
Probably bits of both would be my answer, I guess.
yeah, exactly. I do talk about it. I joke about it. The good old days, of course, it doesn't matter, who you are and what you've done when you're older, you joke about and, relish the good old days. So yeah, I do. And I do really like it from that perspective. It's more challenging now, but it's just like everything in life. It's fast paced, everything is going wide open, yeah, bigger, better, all of that. So, it's just the world today. So, whether you like it or not, if you want to do it, you have to keep up. So it's not an option, and you're either all in or you're all out. But, I think life in general a few years ago was a little slower paced and was more enjoyable from that perspective. So yeah, but kudos to both.
Yeah. Yeah. I get cracked up thinking about it because it really opened my eyes how much stuff had changed. I'm obviously a college football fan too, and I'm from the state of Arkansas. So I'm a diehard Arkansas Razorback. And, our head coach obviously played back in the day, and he's an older coach as well. But this picture surfaced to him back when he played college ball, and he's on the sideline drinking a beer. And it blew my mind to go like, man, that is how far this has come from
Uh-huh.
where it used to be. But that's great to hear it on both sides of the spectrum and hear it connected now. So I
Yeah.
love hearing stories from the veterans of it. But well, cool. Well, we've tapped in a lot of my questions. So obviously you got the NFR next, but beyond that, what's next for you? What's coming up? What's life going to be like coming into to the end of 22 and coming into 23?
Oh goodness, yes. Like I said, it's just a little over a month before the NFR. And then that's through mid-December. And I would love to get my Christmas lights hung before I go. But I've always left it up to my daughter, and she's, not going to get to come home for Thanksgiving this year. She's working on her master's, and so anyway, I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to hang my own Christmas lights all by myself before I go, so that we can all enjoy it when we come home, because it is absolute chaos when we come home in the middle of December, and usually our weather is not good, and just so much to do after being gone for 2 weeks to the NFR. So it's a grind.
Yeah.
Not complaining, but that it's a pretty large 2 week window in December that really throws a lot of chaos into our life. So with that being said, we got 1 month. Like I said, we sell calves here, take calves to market here pretty soon, trying to get these horses ridden. Don't really have a lot planned, taking some young horses to some jackpots here and there when I can get to some stuff, trying to season, like I said, the next champion, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's just kind of what our next month is, and get everything wrapped up, get everything winterized. It's a whole, get ready for our winter season around here. We've got to get, tank heaters ready and livestock moved around, because, when Mother Nature decides to give it to us, we got to be ready, and it will happen sooner than later. It's coming. It's just a matter of when. So within the next month or two or whatever. So
Yeah, it's I was around a horse farm here for a few years ago. It was the performance show horse stuff, but
Mhm.
that freak storm that came south and froze over Texas and all that. That was my first time experiencing like everything freezing over, having to go in with hammers. And I was just like, how do y'all do that up north? I was like,
I
there
know.
ain't no way I would be moving as far south as I can. But I,
Yeah.
something hit me I just thought of in the middle of this, and I cannot believe it's the first time I've thought to ask about this. But, like me, I've gone and I performed at the NFR as a musician several times. And, I think of how every time on the way there, you're excited and going. And then, we're only there for a few days, 3 or 4 days. By the time you're coming back, you're just wiped out. You guys have to do this for 2 weeks if you're able to keep qualifying and make it to the absolute final of the finals.
Mhm.
What's it like out there for that 2 weeks? Because obviously you can't go and be a part of the nightlife all the time, and you've got to pace yourself. I mean, what are those 2 weeks actually like?
Well, yeah, as you say that, it's kind of funny because yeah, people are like, oh, we'll see you out there. I'm like, no, you
No,
won't.
you won't.
And everybody does it a little bit differently. Once again, I'm very hands-on, so I don't have somebody caring for my horses. It's my husband and myself. So our mornings start out, chores, feeding horses, exercising horses, getting cleaned up, and then comes in the sponsor obligations, because that's the greatest event for our sponsors to take advantage of their endorsed athletes. So we do a lot of autograph signing. So and I'm fortunate to have quite a few wonderful sponsors. So usually for at least 3 hours every day, So by the time I get to the Las Vegas Convention Center, my husband drops me off at the curb and I run in and I go sign autographs for 3 different sponsors every day. And he usually picks me up curbside. We usually go grab something to eat. And by that time it's, I need to be back to my horses by 4 o'clock. So we're supposed to have horses into the Thomas and Mack by 5 o'clock. The rodeo gets done. We go back, take care of horses. Okay, are we going to get fast food? Are we going to eat something back at, the condo? I mean, what are we going to do? But I mean, very seldom do we even go out to eat. Well, and hopefully you want to be the round winner, which takes you to South Point, which by then, unfortunately, you have to go, don't get your buckle until almost midnight. And by the time you get home, it's 1 a.m. So it's really a grind when you win. But all joking aside, no, it's wonderful. But then it sure does cut short the, because our day starts over again the next morning. And even our first practice session, we have a meeting at 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning, back number ceremony on that Tuesday night, grand entry practice on Wednesdays, Thursday, this rodeo starts and there starts the autograph signing and the whole. So, I mean, to me, it's not a social event whatsoever. Maybe if we did it a little bit different, we'd have a little more time, but this is what I do all year long. So I'm not going to change it going into the national finals rodeo. So, once again, it's about my horses and they are my priority. So, it makes it very grueling. And, same thing, the signing autographs, for several hours a day, as you will know, it's grueling. It's grueling. You smile painted on and you're engaging all this conversation for hours and you leave there. I just want to mentally exhausted.
I love how every single question I have, it's like you're reading my brain. You start answering it before I can even tap into it because I've been wanting to ask you. So, and for the people listening, it's like she said, we're very thankful. I mean, for y'all, that's the reason why you're able to make so much money is because there's that many people intrigued in it and spend money on the tickets. And like for me, every one of those fans buy my records and support me, and I'm so thankful for them. But usually if there's a meet and greet, that means we've had a million things that we've done, not just the day, but weeks leading to it and all that to get to that point. And we're thankful to meet you. But do you look at that, especially when you're competing at that level and that level of stress? Is it a nice little getaway to get away from the arena and have some interaction? Or do you find it a little bit more as like it's taken away from me and my focus?
Well, number one, I couldn't agree with you more because we wouldn't be doing what we're doing without the fans. I mean, we are who we are because of our fans. So with that being said, I'm always an advocate for the fans, trying to take time for them always, if that means you're, rushing to get somewhere and somebody's like, could you please I'm like, yes, quickly, but I'll sign it. Absolutely love to take a quick picture, go. So I just think that is so important because, and even like, it's kind of interesting. So each event has their autograph session. Like say the barrel racers will be at the Gold Nugget from 12 till 2 on Friday, that first Friday, whatever. When the lines have been so long, they cut that line off. Like that just brings tears to my, and the people and those little girls that are sitting there and they just start crying. I could cry thinking about it. Like that is just heart wrenching. So, I mean, we have to give back to those that, are our fans, but is it mentally grueling? Yes. So like I said, my husband is so gracious. He'll pick me up at the curb when we leave the Las Vegas, convention center, whatever. Like there's no radio, there's no nothing. I just get in that passenger seat and I melt because I am spent, and so yeah. And then it's time to be like, then I just want to get back to my horses. So that's ideal. Like I want to be back to my horses by 4 p.m. because we leave the horses by 5. That's my time. And I just absolutely, it's my letdown time. I go pet on my horses. I talk to them. I let them, maybe out, mill about in the arena where I stay, things like that. Like that's my letdown time. Trying to recharge my batteries because, then when you load up, you're heading into the Thomas and Mack. And next thing you know, here comes the lights of the Thomas and Mack. And it's like, woo, that energy level goes up and you don't need that Red Bull after all. And so here we go. And so, it's a roller coaster of the whole, adrenaline thing all day long for 2 weeks.
Well, you dove into some more there. It's kind of even making me think of questions I wish I'd asked her at this time. Because, for instance, with me, I did the NFR. I want to say I played it 3 or 4 times, somewhere in that vein. And, the very first times I went, no one knew who I was. I was brand new to the scene. So I pretty much show up, do my shows. That's it. Compared to the last year that I did it, I got to where, Daryl Singletary was tagging me along and let me go do events with him. And then I'm doing stuff for Durango. And then you got other sponsors. And, I actually got to where the last big show was the last Saturday night of the whole thing. It's me and Easton Corbin. I go to step on stage. I have no voice left. It is completely gone. And so from that experience, I learned, okay, you can't say yes to everything out there. Where do you draw that line? I mean, do you turn down, events and opportunities while you're there as far as appearances and stuff? Or, I mean, do you take everything? Where do you mentally know that like, this is where I've got to draw the line?
Absolutely. And as it's progressed over the years and more sponsors, whatever, things like that. So absolutely. I do not take on anything else. I mean, I should take that back. I did do a photo shoot a few years ago. I mean, and there was no time for it, so I've just learned from that experience, like, no, there's nothing extra, I'm going to give my time to my sponsors at wherever their booth is at this time, and nothing. And and to this day, like every year, I think I get a little bit better. You just can't do it all. About saying no to certain things. I mean, there's just, or people's requests, about, hey, can we, and I got family that comes to town that I don't even see.
Yeah.
And I mean, I might see them for, they might stop by in between my autograph sessions, and I'm like, I can't do this right now. Like I'm here, still things like that. And it's really hard because it is not a time for entertainment or seeing friends and family. And and it's really hard because I want to, and it's not the time and the place. And I mean, I'm sure it could be, but maybe because I'm old, I can't keep up with it.
Well, I love that you dive in and paint a little bit more depth of a picture as far as the details of it. Cause that's even on our end, we travel all across the world, but people, I'll bet you see cool things. I'm like, we see whatever's in that windshield and whatever's backstage. That's about it. I get to see a shower and a green room. And so to finally hear someone kind of really dive in and explain what it's like. Cause even me, my family came from Arkansas to a couple of shows here just a few weeks ago. And after they were gone, it kind of hit me. I was like, I think I maybe really spent 10 minutes with them and they were here for 2 days. It just, people don't understand how time consuming what we do, even though our jobs are very different, they're still so very much alike. So it's cool to hear someone really tap in and really explain truly what that's like, because everybody's kind of tiptoed around it, not really dove in. So I appreciate the honesty.
Well, and I think there are some people that are better. Oh, for example, when I'm out there, especially in the summer, like if I have a day, I usually try to travel to where if I can make it home, I'll make it home. People from south, maybe come up here, and they're up here more for the summer. So when they leave home, it's kind of like me when I go to Texas. When I leave here and I'm gone, sometimes like last year, I didn't come back. Some of my family came down to see me, but it was my first year that I had never come back home for 10 days in between, say San Antonio and Houston or whatever. So with that being said, but when I'm down there, then I always have young horses with me. So I'm going to jackpots. I'm trying to, season the next young horses. So I don't take time for fun things or even out on the road. But when my family went with me many, many years ago, when this all first started, and we kind of loaded up as a family, we did go do some fun things, like because we had to for the kids or wanted to for the kids. And so we actually took time, to go do these things or see these things. But I'm with you now, like, I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. I usually have so many horses with me that I'm so busy that, and I am a bit obsessive compulsive about my horses, but I think because I spend so much time with them, that's just the way I am. So I'm always doting on them or whatever. But there are a lot of, people out here, or maybe if I wasn't by myself so much, if my husband was with me more. And so sorry about that.
Oh, you're right. Did it kick you off? Yep. All right.
I'm so sorry about that.
You're all right. Here, let me get the video.
Both of us in technology. We're not very good.
Here, let me get this video thing going. I'm the same way. When they first got this idea of doing this, I was like, I don't have the first clue how to even think about doing this. And I realized Zoom is actually not that hard, but still.
Oh. And then my battery's going to die.
There we go. Well, I'm about to say mine's getting close. But I think it's been the longest one I've had, but you've had so much to say, so it's been awesome. But yeah, just to pick up where we left off on there, it's a grind, and you're very hands-on. I think that's where you and I really relate. We're the same, because people all the time are like, bro, you got band members, you got guys out here, like, go rest. But I don't have that in me. I've got to be a part of doing everything.
Yep.
And it's,
Yep.
and
Exactly. Yeah, you're not wrong. And my husband always says, though, because like I said, he's not normally with me, but when I talk about so and so, or he'll see stuff on their social media, like they went and saw this and they went and saw that, and he's like, I could travel with her, like he was joking. So it was funny because I have another fellow barrel racer that she likes to go do things, but her husband doesn't. I'm like, see, your husband and I get along great, and then my
yeah,
husband could go do things, and you could go but we just joke about it. But yeah, and I would enjoy seeing and doing some more things, but I feel like if you want a job done, you do it yourself, and you do
yep.
it to the best of your ability, and so yeah, I same thing. What I see is through my windshield getting from destination A to B. And yeah, it's just what it is.
I love it. I love it. Well, I know this has gone almost into an hour, which has been awesome. This has been probably the most interactive one and more detailed interviews we've had. So I really, really thank you for that. But I guess we've kind of tapped into this just a tiny bit. But, like I said, what's next? And, where can all the folks find you? And is there any messages that you want to send out to people in the music world that maybe don't necessarily know about the rodeo world?
Well, I mean, I think it's great, and I mean, it's obviously very entwined, and I think it's great, that you have knowledge, or that you are seeking more knowledge, and to maybe we can give you a few stories. I don't know, that give you something else to write about. But honestly, I don't know a lot about your industry as well as most singers or songwriters don't know a lot about our industry. So the
Yeah.
fact that we are always open minded and trying to learn and have that utmost respect for what each other does, I mean, I think that's great. So but yeah, I'm pretty low key right now. Like I said, this next month, kind of at home. I love to live under a rock anyway. I would love to. So doing
Same.
things like this, I'm like, oh, okay.
I think you're my
um
spirit animal. I'm the same way.
if I don't have to, I don't. Yeah. So interviews, whatever. But yeah, I know it's all part of the game, and this is what we do. So, but anyway, so I will be lying as low as I can lie for the next month, just kind of preparing, riding the young horses, being a ranch wife, and mom from afar. Like I said, my three kids are all south, and we're up here, and so anyway. But yeah, and then just kind of it'll be here before we know it that we're loading up and heading to the NFR, and maybe being not so busy, not having even the youngest in the house or no athletic events to be going to, I could actually get my stuff packed up, because I'm usually packing all night long the night before we leave. Not that I haven't known for 2 months that I'm headed to Vegas or whatever, and getting all those electric tank heaters put in those water tanks for these animals, because it's going to get cold. I mean, maybe I won't leave everything to the last minute, but I've said that every year, so I don't know why I do anything different now, but I'll try.
You've got a formula and it seems to work. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Oh, I know, but that sleep thing, like sleep deprivation is the pits, and I don't know. I've just learned to live with it for a lot of years, but
Yeah, I'm starting to get that way. The album came out and the video came out, and I don't feel like we have stopped since. Even my band members the other day, I think it's the first time they looked at me and they're like, "Dude, you need a break." I was like, "Yeah, we do." So I know the feeling. But
yeah.
well, with that said, I'm gonna let you go rest and enjoy this
Okay.
month, because I know the NFR is coming, and wish you good luck. And if we get out there, I will be rooting for you. And if not, I'll be doing it from here. But hopefully we'll
Awesome.
cross paths sooner and later. And once again, thank you so much for being a part of the song and the video. And look forward to seeing where our paths cross.
I would very much look forward to it. So, I thank you for the video, putting it in with your song, and you know, giving us the recognition and things like that, and learning more about, the people that were actually in your video. So, and what we do. And so I think that's pretty cool, and making that connection. And, I'm just glad to have the connection with this mutual sponsor of Durango. So I'm sure our paths will cross, and we'll look forward to actually meeting you in person someday. That would be fantastic.
Yes, ma'am. Well, you have a great day, and we will see you here at some point. Good luck.
Thank you. You as well.
All righty.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.